guess it began when I was 12 years old. Now I'm 70. And without knowing in this life, without the knowledge of what is Krishna consciousness, what was Srila Prabhupada, at the age of 12, somehow or another, I rebelled against the system which I was brought up into. I became a vegetarian. I started searching for the absolute truth. The Bhagavad Gita tells us that 3 types of persons come to Krishna. Those who are seeking money, those who are in distress, and those who are seeking the absolute truth. So I don't think I fell into the category of those who were seeking money, because I had a lot of that. And I gave it all up. It was self-made, but some help from the parents and the family. And distress, yes, we were all in distress in this material world. We didn't know which way to go, what to do. Our seemingly happiness with our material life, but actually seeking the absolute truth. I was looking in the mountains, I was looking in the forests, I was looking in the swamps, I was living in the ghettos with the black people, I was prompting with kings, I was living rich, I was living poor, I was traveling from place to place with vows of poverty, trying to understand. And I met what I could call my Vartma Pradaksha Guru. He was the one, Baba Ram Das. He wrote a famous book called Be Here Now. He had journeyed to India. Anyways, he introduced me to the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Indirectly. And I did that, and we traveled as we did, many people did in that time among the hippie communes and things. And probably first heard of Prabhupada way back in 1968 when he was in San Francisco. And like this, life went on. And the travels led me to a bus. It was in a house that I was staying with. We were all, a lot of people staying in a house. And the bus had Vishnu Jan Swami in it. And he camped out in our house in Fort Lauderdale. And we did some some kirtan with him. And he was only there a night, so there wasn't much, but what is this, right? And they gave me a book, a Back to Godhead magazine, which I threw on the bed, and it went underneath the waterbed. Later it came out, and I dried it, and I read it. And of course, chanting Hare Krishna. Then again, I met him by the will of Providence, meeting devotees in different places, not really understanding, in rock festivals and in downtowns and book distribution, but already chanting Hare Krishna, but not really knowing anything about the Krishna consciousness movement. Then again, it really began, I met Vishnu Jan Swami and Tamal Krishna Goswami in a bus in a park in Phoenix, Arizona. So they said, when you come to Krishna, you should bring an offering. So that day we went out with a station wagon, big cars with the back of it. We went all over the fruit orchards and the flowers and the dates, and we picked them from everywhere around Phoenix, which is a famous growing area. And we filled up the whole car, and we brought it to the park where Vishnu Jan Swami was. And we offered it to the deities of Radha Damodar there. So then Mr. John said, you've made this offering, you have to come now back to the temple with us. So we went back to the temple, and I stayed a couple of days with them. They were leaving for India, early days. This was probably in the beginning of '73 by that time. And so that began the journey. Very shortly, Krishna took me. He took me out of the House of the Rising Sun, which is a famous place in New Orleans. We won't get into any details. And he transferred me to Miami by airplane with a few bodyguards. And I got to Miami, and I had an intimate relationship with a my first devotee there. His name was Mahashringa. He was Bhakta Mike then. He looked at me. By this time, I had transformed from a long-haired hippie with hair down to here. And I had on a dhoti which was made out of a sheet. I had some beads which were tied up into knots by a rope. I had a sikha that was funny shaped that came down to my back, later became matted. And I had some toothpaste which I had used to make tilak. And I came from a jailhouse where I was only for 24 hours, and the devotees were coming in. They had been picked up for distributing books. And they were coming out. They were getting immediately bonded. And they looked at me. I looked kind of funny, you know. I didn't really look like your regular Hare Krishna. And they said, "What temple are you from?" I said, "I'm from the temple of the world." And they said, "Where are you going?" And my brother was there with some of my friends, and they said, "He's coming with us. We have a party for him. He's been gone for some time." And I said, "No, I'm going with them." And they said, "Yes, we'll be out in 10 minutes. You come with us." So then Mahashringa's Bhakta Mike is there. He looks me over. What kind of animal is this, you know? And he gives me a dhoti. He gives me a kurta. He gives me some toothbrush, toothpaste. That's all I was. That was it. There was nothing else. And he gave me a mat. It was in the Brahmachari ashram. And he goes, "That way's east." It was 10 o'clock at night. Everybody was sleeping. I had no idea which way was east, what it meant. That's where you put your head when you sleep. So that began. And then I said, "Okay, I'll stay here 30 days and give it a try." Never left. That was in 73.
73.
So still to this day trying to be a devotee. I haven't yet become a devotee, but I'm trying, right? So they ask, "When did you become a devotee?" I haven't become one yet. So during the years, many things, like was a funny thing in the very beginning, I thought that one round was once and back again. I thought that was one round. So for the first month, I was chanting 32 rounds, right? And I thought, this is hard, and everybody was finishing before me. Then one day I'm watching this Brahmin. He's chanting, and he gets to one round, and he pulls down the bead. I watched him again. He did it again. He had his beads out, too. I said to him, "Prabhu, you're cheating." He said, "What do you mean?" I says, "You're counting half a round as one round." So then he explained to me. And then chanting 16 rounds became a little easier. And then after a couple of weeks, they said, "You should go out and try book distribution." And some of the first devotees that are still with me in Krishna consciousness to this day, like Abhirama, Adridharana, Mahashringa, they were all there. We were a big band in Miami. So they said, "You got to go out and try book distribution. And you got to put on this wig, put on a hat, a wig, put on these karmi clothes, this thing, and you got to go out and distribute books." I said, "I'll go out, but I'm not going to do all this stuff." I said, "I've changed my life now." So I went out with my Sankirtan leader and 4 or 5 other devotees, and they were all out there. And our friend Adridharana was there, but he was dressed up a little bit. And he would point to people and he would say, "We're distributing for India and collecting money for feed people in India. And here's one of the people from there that was so grateful to us, he came back to help us out because I was wearing a dhoti." So the very first day I went out, I collected more than my Sankirtan leader. I distributed more books and collected more money. So they told me, "Prabhu, this is your propensity." This is what you have to do. But I also had an inclination toward farms and gardens and cows. So I said, this isn't all I can do, right? And Srila Prabhupada had given me 3 personal instructions that I consider personal instructions. One was to offer obeisances. That was the first one. That happened in Philadelphia in the airport in 1976. I went there to New Vrindavan for initiation 3 years after I joined, 2.5 years after I joined, because I didn't want a Ritvik initiation. I didn't want it. I wanted Prabhupada to hand me my beads. Prabhupada was doing Ritvik from the early 70s, right? And I kept asking my temple presidents, things, I want to go where Prabhupada is and I want to take initiation. We'll do by letter, we'll do this, that. You have to stay here and distribute books, that's what pleases Prabhupada. And we were developing gardens for some of the temples, and I was sending Prabhupada's coconuts and neem twigs and everything every day when he was touring around America. We'd climb up the trees and get him in Miami. So Prabhupada was coming. I went to New Vrindavan. I had a Sankirtan party. We had our own party. I was the leader. And I went to New Vrindavan and I told the Sankirtan party, no, you guys go back where you came from. I'm staying here until Prabhupada comes. You can't, you're leaving the temple. I said, I'm leaving. I'm waiting here for Prabhupada. I'm not going to go for this anymore, you know? So they went back and I waited, and Prabhupada came and he gave me initiation personally. That went really well. So when I first saw Srila Prabhupada, the very first time was when he came into the airport in Pittsburgh. You got to imagine the airport's a big circle like this. And on the top, the stairs come out and people come out from the different planes, from the different side, right? So for months before Prabhupada's coming, he even asked, why is it every temple I go to smells like fresh paint? Everything would always be ready, and that was the mantra, Prabhupada's coming. And we were just totally absorbed in it. Everything we did was, we're going to meet Prabhupada's coming here. So there was a tumultuous kirtan in the airport. We could do kirtans at that time in the airport. And the Radha Damodar parties were there, the traveling parties. A lot of people, because it was New Vrindavan. It was a big gathering. And of course, there were some other passengers and airport officials around. So finally, Prabhupada walks out. We're right down there in the middle of the kirtan, right in the center. Prabhupada walks out. And when he walked out, the whole kirtan stopped. Everybody hit the ground and did obeisances. But I didn't. Look at Prabhupada, oh my God, he's come. And he goes like this. Looked straight at me, and I was the only one, like this. So that was his first instruction, was to offer obeisances. And the second instruction I got with him was on a morning walk. I was tending the cows in New Vrindavan and helping to build A-frames and do different things. And we were living up in the old Vrindavan farm. And Prabhupada came up. I went on many morning walks and darshans and things, but in this morning walk, I'm standing, there's a lot of pictures, I'm right next to Prabhupada. And I'm herding the cows, so I got some boots on and got a t-shirt on instead of a dhoti and everything. And I got a dhoti, but so I'm herding the cows. And this one cow kept hitting Prabhupada like this. She was a Frisian. She was a Frisian cow, black and white. She kept nudging Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was affectionate, pat her on the head, and he would smile. And then Prabhupada turns and he says, how old is this cow? Hari Sori says, she's 10 or 12 years old, Prabhupada. I said, no. I says, Prabhupada, I'm her cow herd. She's only 4 years old and her name is Kalindi. And she's just started giving milk. And Prabhupada looked at me directly in the eyes and he says, you must protect. He didn't say we should protect. He said, you must protect the cows. Second instruction. Third instruction, I like to dance. And I thought maybe Prabhupada would give me a name, something to do with dancing. And the day before initiation, we were in a Rath Yatra in Cleveland, but Prabhupada couldn't go there. So it came in the front page of the paper, the Rath cart with Lord Jagannath there and everything. And somehow in the paper, in the front of the paper, I was dancing in front of the Rath cart, both feet off the ground, my hands up in the air and my chadar flying. That came on the front of the Cleveland Press. And I was told later by Kulik Shekhar, Prabhupada's disciple, he said, oh, that devotee dances like Lord Chaitanya. Right? So I thought that Prabhupada maybe would give me some Nataraj, I didn't know, right? So we were outside the barn going into Radha Vrindavan Chandra's temple, and we were dancing like everything. And a couple of times Prabhupada looked at me and smiled, right? It was in brahmachari cloth. There's pictures of that too. And you come into Radha Vrindavan Chandra's temple, and there's a hallway. And 2 devotees can be on each side, and then in the middle, Prabhupada would walk. So I was jumping up and down. I was right there as Prabhupada would come in, just a few feet. And I was dancing like anything. And Prabhupada was ready to come in, and this devotee Charu, he pushes me down. He says, "No, you may hit Prabhupada. You can't dance here." I said, "I have to dance." And he said, "No, you can't dance." And he pushed me the second row behind. Charu was his name. He later had some difficulties. So Prabhupada walked in, and all the devotees were like this. There was a small kirtan. Nobody was really dancing. When he walked in the hallway, right? Prabhupada walked over. Right next to me, he stopped. He turned, he looked me in the eyes, and he raised both hands. One had a bead bag, and one had a cane. He said, "Dance." And he wasn't there when the devotee pushed me behind, but he was there outside, and he had seen that picture of Cleveland Rath Yatra. So that was the third instruction I got from Srila Prabhupada. Those were direct instructions. And then one instruction I thought I got from Prabhupada was, we were in a garden with Prabhupada. He was giving a darshan, and he had a rose in his hand. He had just finished telling us that sense gratification is like salt. You have to have a little bit or you'll die. And he described the 6 Goswamis, how they had to take a pat of butter, a little bit of salt, or otherwise they would die too. And how they had to sleep 1 hour or 2 hours. They had to eat if a pat of butter. And he said, and for defense, they were always dependent on Krishna. And for mating, he said there was no question. Then he had this rose. And there's one rose with smell too. So Prabhupada had this rose. And he said, Krishna consciousness is like this rose. He says, if I have this beautiful rose, and I think, let me give it to Radha Vrindavan Chandra. Prabhupada smiled. He says, I'm going to Vaikuntha. Then he put down again. He says, but I have this same rose, and I think, let me give it to my girlfriend. He goes, I'm going to hell. And he throws the rose, and I was right there. And the rose came right in front of me, but this other devotee grabbed it. Right? I didn't get the rose. He took it, and I didn't know whether Prabhupada was telling me that if I offer roses to Radha Vrindavan Chandra, I'm going to Vaikuntha or I'm going to hell. I didn't know which one, and I'm still wondering. So that was another indirect instruction. So over the years, of course, we all go through many trials and tribulations in Krishna consciousness. It's not easy when we declare war on Maya. It's not ready. And I remember many times in Prabhupada's personal presence and sometimes in lectures, there was a famous line which we always remember, which has impelled us in Krishna consciousness all these years. Prabhupada would always say, give this one life to Krishna. Give this one life to Krishna. So that's what he would implore to all his devotees and all his things. Give this one life to Krishna. So we will try that. I'm still trying. 30 days I thought I would give it. I'm still trying to this day. So there's so much more, and like I said, we're still trying to become devotees. But Prabhupada's instructions to us are there every day, to every one of us. Every instruction we read from his books, we hear from a tape, when we understand this is our Guru Datta Desh, this is where Prabhupada wants me to serve, all those are personal instructions. There's no difference. So many devotees had this is all the association I ever had with Prabhupada, never had more. And so many things have come from the books. Whenever we have a question, whenever we have a problem, all we have to do is sit down with Prabhupada's books, with the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we have to ask our question with all sincerity, then open the book to any place, any Bhagavatam, any canto, and read. The answer will come. Prabhupada was giving a class once. And in this class, it was all about the Srimad Bhagavatam and how it's, the prime benediction for humanity at large, how it's Nigamam Kalpataro Kalam. He was giving a whole class on it. And then one devotee at the time of questions, he raises his hand and he says, Srila Prabhupada, we have so many problems in life. We have so many reverses. We have so many dilemmas. We don't know what to do. How do we do? We have enemies. We have friends. What do we do, Prabhupada? How do we figure it all out? Prabhupada put back his head and he goes, Bhagavatam, Bhagavatam, Bhagavatam. And that was the end of the lecture. No more questions. So we all can have that personal relationship with Srila Prabhupada. Don't let anybody tell you differently. It's very true. We won't get into it because it would be like preaching to the choir, but you're all on the right path. The path of Ritvik is 101% bona fide and authorized by Srila Prabhupada and the entire parampara. They call them the Madhvas, they call them the Ramanujas, they call them the Nabarkas. Why? Because that's who they're following. That's their guru. This is tradition. They try to say it's not tradition. Of course, you know all the arguments, so we won't preach about that. So this is the purpose of our Krishna consciousness movement, is we make our commitments every day. That's one thing I learned from my Vartma Pradaksha guru, Baba Ram Das, who showed me the way. Be here now. Every day, we just give everything to Krishna. We give our all in all. One time they asked Krishna, why is Srimati Radharani the best devotee of Krishna? Prabhupada said, because she gives her all in all to Krishna. That's what we do every day. Some days it's hard. We're in a trial. I don't feel like doing this today. I don't feel like... One time where Tamal Krishna, he wasn't dancing in the kirtan. This was in Bombay when Mr. Nair was going to take away the temple from us. And Prabhupada went over to Tamal Krishna Maharaj and he told him, he said, even if Mr. Nair won't give us this temple, to give us this land, there was no temple yet, dance in kirtan. And Tamal told him, when the weights come on my head, my feet get heavy on the ground. Prabhupada said, no, dance in kirtan, he told him. So this is the devotees, of course, everything's not going to be perfect. We hear chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Huh? This is nothing but Kevalananda Kanda. It's all true. But then again, we have to rid ourselves of our material desires in this life and go closer and closer to Krishna. So there are so many things we could say, but we have a big yatra today. And I have to thank each and every single devotee that's here. And so impressed, and I have been for years, so impressed with the caliber of your love and your dedication to Srila Prabhupada. This is Bharat Bhumi Haila Manusha Yan Majar Karikara Para Upakara. This is what Prabhupada wanted. That's why he brought his dancing white elephants to India, so that this would happen. He says, Westerners, they all fall for sex. Indians, they fall for money. But you guys are falling for neither. This is very monumental. Our children's children's children, Prabhupada said about the Gurukula. And it's the same thing. You're now into the third generation of Prabhupada disciples. So this is what's going to save the world. This is the army you are making now that will march all over this whole planet. After this planet and the modern civilization as we know it today, you will endure. And this will spread to every town and every village. Already we're in every town and every village, and Lord Chaitanya's mercy is going, but his soldiers have a big job ahead of them. So the training, the lalyam, the enthusiasm that you have, it's unmatched. I've been all over the world, seen devotees everywhere. It's unmatched. And you're all under Prabhupada's way. And you're all Prabhupada's disciples. I told one of your leaders yesterday, I said, actually, I'm your little brother. I'm not your big brother. He called me big brother. I said, no, I'm your little brother. You devotees, we feel shame to see how dedicated and how proper you are in the execution of Krishna consciousness. This is all Prabhupada's mercy to these devotees. This is very important. You should never think otherwise. Never. Just Prabhupada said, give this one life to Krishna. And you're doing it. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.